What if I told you there was a country in Europe that should be completely underwater? Well, in the Netherlands, half of its terrain, including Amsterdam, its capital city, are actually below sea level. Without dams keeping the sea at bay and the technology to maintain it, the Netherlands would get washed away like a scene from the apocalypse. So, let's take a look at a country precariously at odds with nature in its existence and see what the towns, architecture, even the dams and bridges holding back the sea itself looks like in Minecraft. This is everything the Netherlands and Belgium have ever done. So if we're gonna get weird, let's start strong. Check out this neo-starfish-shaped island thingy with a fort built around its fields in suburbia. In case you're wondering where this comes from, it's built by Team Benelux in the Netherlands, who is in charge of building the entire country as well as Belgium and Luxembourg. I don't know why these forts worldwide always go for these interesting designs of stars, pentagons, etc. Maybe it's some sort of psychic crop circle multidimensional alien thing, but several centuries after it was built, they gave it up and Bretagne became a normal village. Now, if you want to get even weirder than that, I love this next one, and not just because its name looks like someone committed gamercide on their keyboard. Afsluitdijk is this 32-kilometer bridge that also serves as a dam that people drive over in the Netherlands. This thing over the decades actually keeps sinking, and they keep elevating and building to raise its height. Freaking me out, man. They created this because they wanted to eliminate the Bay of Zuiderzee for their own plans. To complete the massive dike, specifically at low tide, they had 10,000 workers, 13 floating cranes, 132 barges, and 88 tugs working simultaneously to get the remainder done during the specific time of day they wanted it to be closed off. I unfortunately only have my render distance set to 1000, which equals 16,000 blocks, which would be 16 kilometers, which is not enough to load the entire thing. But I did load half. Maybe I fixed it sometime post writing the script to 2000 render distance required, but in any case, they have a render of the entire thing completed here. Walking across that whole thing might make your feet tired. Luckily, Team Benelux have completed a portion of Amersfoort, a city in the Netherlands that dates back to 1000 BC in terms of what remains have been discovered. But if you'll remember from our Eastern Europe video, Neanderthals inhabited Europe 100,000 years ago, and an even more ancient predecessor a similar time span before that. So what they've found is just what has survived. Standing a foot above the rest in Amersfoort is the Ons Lief Vrouwtrein, translated as the Tower of Our Lady, a late Gothic church tower with haunting beauty. The inner city of Amersfoort has been well preserved since the Middle Ages, so what's been constructed by Benelux could be well considered their old town, and it gets its name Kiestad, meaning Boulder City, from 1661 when 400 people lugged a 9-ton boulder into town because of a bet by 2 landowners. The winner bought everyone beer and pretzels. I didn't know pretzels were that old in concept, but there you go. They probably also have pretzels on this crazy huge modern walkout dock that's been built on Scheveningen, a beach in the Netherlands. It's a super popular tourist attraction, no shit, and is adjacent to the Kurhaus Hotel still being built. This might seem cool, but even cooler is in this very spot, 500 years ago, the English and Dutch fleets engaged in a full-scale battle of naval fleets, thousands of people living in town coming to the Scheveningen shore to watch. It is right here in this geographical location, when going forward and backward in time, that we can see the contrast in the human journey. Safe, sterilized, but cool-looking modernity versus living in your little village house on the beach, hearing the guns, and coming out to watch the theater of men slaughtering each other, perhaps just because their respective kings told them to. Now, Utrecht is the capital of the Netherlands, but it's only the 4th largest city here, though historically it's no slouch. It was number 1 for basically all of the Netherlands' history until the Dutch Golden Age, when Amsterdam came up and surpassed it. Lots of the features of the city center, part of what you see built, dates back from the High Middle Ages. And being in the center of the country, it's an important rail station, hence the rails that you see. While this city in Europe has been around for forever, it has evidence of habitation that dates back to earlier than 2000 BC. They associate Utrecht's real foundation during the Roman Empire, when the Romans a castellum, a fortification, was put on the site. These castellums usually housed a cohort of 500 Roman soldiers, but in 300 AD, with the increasing invasions from the Germanic tribes, the Romans could no longer hold the northern border of the dwindling empire, and Utrecht was abandoned, and we just don't know what happened after that. Romans were better at the time with record keeping than who they would call the barbarian invasions. Team Benelux has also built the North Tower on the island of Schlermonnikoog, a name I will never get tired of saying because it's awesome. And then there's also the Pyramid of Austerlitz. The story is wild. Okay, check it out. Back in the 1700s, Napoleon's consolidating power and armies and power, and at some point, here in the Netherlands, the troops get so bored that they decide to build an earthen mound looking exactly like the pyramids in Egypt. If you see it in real life, it actually looked a lot like this when it was finished, except they had put a wooden obelisk on the top, which began to deteriorate. So they made a stone obelisk for it decades later. In the early 2000s, 2 centuries of weather had worn this thing down to just a pile of dirt. So they restored the hell out of it, and now it looks something like the original engravings made by the artists who saw it upon completion during the Napoleon days. Another creative area by Benelux are these bridges in Houten, which have immaculate street view detailing, which will not go unnoticed. And here's an area that is, a factory? Not an airport, unless they're taking off on that highway, but it's in the village of Ochten, first recognized in the 9th century as in Uleoften. Not much happened here. It was owned by kings and bishops and whatever. Until World War II, this area became a battleground between the Germans and Allied forces. That crumbling city in Saving Private Ryan where they were defending from that incoming attack? Yeah, basically this place. Not a single house remained undamaged, and more than half of the 400 houses in this area were damaged beyond repair. It's insane to think, living in this area, of the men that strangled, stabbed, shelled, and shot each other to death. Probably the most haunted village of all time. There's some scattered progress in Rotterdam, the second largest city in the Netherlands. It's Europe's largest port city, and they've got some progress on this little peninsula, and then behind it, some crazy skyscrapers, including one apparently from the mirror dimension or something. And then there's the town of Beveren, now in Belgium, where there's pretty good progress centered around the Church of Our Lady. Another casually 1,000-year-old church whose pipe organ dates back to the 18th century, which gets me really excited. I want to visit and hear those pipes. In terms of religiosity plummeting in the United States, I feel much of it has to do with the fact that we have very little in terms of glorious churches like these. And of the ones that we do, none of them have ancient history. We all need a little magic in our lives, and the Amazon building looking megachurch boxes of the United States do little in terms of religious inspiration. They've got this cute little morsel of progress in Antwerp that has churches, a performing arts theater, and much more. And then we've got 2 completely contained and completed square islands of progress in Markt, a town square at the center of Tessenderlo in Belgium. The first island of progress centered around the St. Martin Church, a Romanesque church built in 1135. Tessenderlo itself was home to a crazy disaster during World War III. During World War II, and I would consider this the historical low point of human health, since we had just started to produce all these chemicals, crazy shit, etc., and we had no idea what we were doing, and people were dying for all kinds of random reasons. But here's another one. They were wheeling this stock of 150 tons of ammonium nitrate at the chemical plant near the center of town, and it exploded, killing almost 200 people. As if the Nazis weren't bad enough. Luckily, the church wasn't touched, and the ancient furniture, choir, pulpit, and everything contained within still stands to this day. Another ancient city is Tournai, a pivotal city to Belgium's culture and history. The kingdom of the Franks, an ancient empire which basically began as the barbarian invasions, as the Roman Empire puts them, had Tournai as its official capital. This very interesting cathedral that you see is a testament to the historical importance of Tournai, being named Notre Dame de Tournai, and it's no accident that its name is kind of a knockoff of the original, because in 1999 this cathedral was severely damaged by a tornado, as opposed to the original one, which would get hit by a fire 20 years later. The problem is, aside from the obvious external damage the tornado caused, The investigation revealed considerable problems with the internal robustness of the church's foundations that are ongoing and at this point could be called archaeological investigations. The structural damage to the cathedral has been undergoing repair in the decades since. And it's funny you mention a tornado because there was also a metaphorical echo of this in Minecraft as well. This beautiful complete area you see here was actually griefed by a deeply confused individual who will not be named. Luckily, we can see and celebrate the restoration. Unfortunately for the griefer, they had a backup. Bada bing bada boom, it's back in a minute. Suck it. Also, for a totally opposite change of pace and feel, but also in the city limits of Tournai, is the restaurant complex Ferme de Goule, surrounded by some really cool patterned fields. What I love about these areas is it shows you what small-town Europe is really like. They're just like us guys, except every downtown has a 1,000-year-old cathedral instead of a McDonald's. Something they've got in Belgium instead of another McDonald's is the Atomium in Brussels, which we have already covered in another video. One thing that's incredible about the Atomium is that it's almost the tallest structure in Brussels, even though that wasn't the intention. Rather, instead to be sciencey, weird, and inspiring. Another thing that hasn't been mentioned is how rabid the organizations protecting its copyright are. They've litigated against random tourists who take pictures of it and post it online. Word is they now allow it after the natural backlash of the absurdity of not being able to post photos of the cool stuff you went to see on vacation, which is a normal thing for billions of people. Speaking of billions of people, Team Benelux have put themselves together to complete the most populated area in the world. Herstop. Guess how many people live here? Just guess. It's 89. 89 people live here. What I love about this place is the field work. I think this is an underrated thing in Build the Earth, but as you all can probably see by witnessing all of these areas, there's a boundary where the incompletion of the world map begins. Some people mask this by doing an island so your boundary is just water. Others choose areas where the boundary is perfectly seamless with forest and trees. But these fields, which you have to manually work on but look so cool, I think are a really underrated border for small towns and such. Build the Earth needs a fields team where they just build fields. Get on it! If you haven't noticed by now, Team Benelux is into long roads, weird bridges, interesting dams. Because here's another one, a causeway going over the water that again looks unlike bridges usually made in this project. It's Herring-Vliet Dam, and all this interesting stuff you see are its hydraulic engineering structures. And here's another church in the city of Dinant, but unlike the rest, you can see this incredible geological shelf it's built next to. This area is barely started in Minecraft, but based on how incredible it looks in real life, I can't wait to see more. And here is a wild area of progress inhabiting a wild area terrain in Luxembourg City, centered around the Place d'Armas, planned out in the 1500s after a large fire destroyed this part of the city. A really crazy thing about Luxembourg City is that 70% of the residents are foreign-born, only 30% being native Luxembourgians. Historically, Luxembourg has been judged as perhaps the greatest fortress in the world to none other than perhaps Gibraltar, which gave it the nickname of being the Gibraltar of the North. But it eventually fell to Napoleon, and after all of that was over, they gave it to Prussia, that country that doesn't exist anymore. Maybe it never existed. Maybe it's like Australia. And hey, check out this wacky shit. It's the Gibraltar Tower. It's the tallest structure in Western Europe. Look at how they detailed these support cables. It looks so cool. In 2011, there was a fire on this thing, and hours later, a similar tower in Smilde caught fire and collapsed, so they shut down the transmitters. I'm confused. Are you saying frequencies between these towers caused them both to set fire? Is that possible, or am I just an idiot? This is blowing my mind. In real life, they deck this out at Christmas so that the cables simulate the shape of a Christmas tree. And that is everything the Netherlands and Belgium have ever done. A huge thanks to Team Benelux for all the work they've put into these amazing creations in Minecraft. If you want to help expand the domain of the Nether in Minecraft, an invite link is somewhere around here. A huge thanks to Solly, our Tier 5 patron and the savior of mankind. Thank you for the support.